500 Australian company.
And yet you're also a witch.
That's right.
Aren't you?
Yeah, that's right.
In Victoria this week, the government decided to repeal old laws banning witchcraft and fortune-telling. Whether the full moon and the latest bout of potomania had anything to do with it, we're not sure. But one thing we do know is that witches and wizards are coming out of the broom closet in big numbers. At the last census, 24,000 Australians described themselves as pagans or worshippers of nature-based religions. If you picture witches as crones in black pointy hats riding a broomstick, you're out of date. As Sunday's Graham Davis discovered, today's wizards and pagans can be found in the boardroom and the surgery.
Sponde Persephone, White Lady of Mercy. Sponde Hades Adonis.
He's a leading cancer specialist at a major Brisbane hospital he'd prefer we didn't name, because Dr. Quentin Walker isn't your normal medico when it comes to his religious beliefs.
Queen of Elysium.
Dr. Walker calls himself a Greek reconstructionist, meaning that clad in his Grecian toga, he ends each working day at his homemade altar worshipping the gods of ancient Greece.
My favourite god is Persephone, who's the lady who goes from life to death to life to death to life to death. She's the sort of symbol of reincarnation in the same way, say, that Christ is the symbol of resurrection. The beauty about the Greeks is that they married their spirituality and their science. They believed in evolution and change. They did not tie themselves to a dogma which was no longer appropriate.
And a science in you finds that compelling, spiritually.
Absolutely. And to all the immortal Olympians, I offer this wasteful sacrifice.
And you do that every day?
Almost every day.
So, like a lapsed Christian, you can be a lapsed pagan.
Well, I don't think doing it most days of the week is terribly lapsing myself, but anyway.
But you don't have to be perfect.
No.
No.
Strange as it seems, Dr. Walker was born the son of an Anglican clergyman, but now believes not in one God, as Christians do, but in many, a doctrine called polytheism.
There are many paths, all of which are true. There is not just one true path. There are many true paths. And that's very important to realise.
To the truth, to the spiritual fulfilment for the individual.
Absolutely, yes. You who are always first and last.
He's also proud to call himself a pagan, coming out on national television from what pagans call the broom closet, something he knows won't make his life any easier given the job he does.
When it first became known that I was pagan, there are a few doctors who refused to work with me. And it's interesting because in the end, most of my patients really like me, and most of the doctors, my colleagues, really like me too. So
You're quite open about being a pagan.
Well, yeah, I mean, what's the point of hiding it now? Everyone knows.
But never mind what he does in this life. Dr. Walker can also tell us what he did in past lives, a firm believer in one of the central tenets of paganism, reincarnation. He's undergone something called past life regression therapy.
I think I was a European in the late Middle Ages, and I drowned with waves crashing over me while I was trying to rescue something from the waves from a wreck.
Lest it be thought this pagan oncologist is alone in his unconventional thinking, he isn't, far from it. At his Queensland property recently, Dr. Walker played host to a festival celebrating Tharwane, the Southern Hemisphere's version of Halloween. This This year's theme was a celebration of Egyptian deities, including the greatest of all, Isis, mother of all gods. As with all pagan festivals, the serious was interspersed with the light-hearted, with most of the 300 attendees set on having the mother of all good times. But these are just a fraction of the total number of Australians who now identify themselves as pagans or members of nature-based religions, 24,000 at the last census. Suddenly, an army of Australians is emerging from the shadows of prejudice and fear, having turned their backs on Christianity and, for that matter, the other major religions as well. We're not talking here about lapsed churchgoers, agnostics, or common or garden variety atheists, but people who've embraced a belief system that predates Christianity by many thousands of years.
I exorcise thee, O creature of water, thou that cast out of thee all impurities and uncleanliness of the phantasm.
Their beliefs Christianity tried to wipe out, the legends and mysteries of ancient times, rooted in the folklore of simple rural people who worship nature and the seasons.
We are come from the clouds, and to her we shall return like a drop of rain.
The goddess in this instance is Gaia, the goddess of creation. But there's a host of goddesses and gods pagans may or may not celebrate, depending on the individual. There are so many different strands of paganism that it's rather like a religious smorgasbord. Choose the brand you want, or mix a bit of one with others. At this ritual in Queensland are pagans whose beliefs derive from ancient Britain, like the Druids of Stonehenge fame, from ancient Europe, north and south. There are shamans, the medicine men and women of paganism, healers, and those who are more New Agers, attracted to paganism for its emphasis on the sanctity of nature. Wiccans, Alexandrians, Gardnerians, whatever. Pagans generally seem an easygoing bunch who don't seek converts and don't like bagging other religions. They also revel in the mystery and magic of it all, a cast of characters springing to life from the pages of the fairy tale stories we've all grown up with.
Well, I'm a wizard, and what wizards do is wizards know stuff and offer helpful counsel and try to do everything possible to make the world a better place.
His name is Oberon Zell Ravenheart, an American who's been dubbed the father of modern paganism, providing the umbrella in 1967 that many pagans gather under, founder of the Church of All Worlds.
I seem to have been the first person to have actually said, yes, I'm a pagan, and that's what we are. And many other people at that time who were involved in similar traditions of the old religion or nature worship, such as Greek or Roman or Egyptian or Celtic, Druidic traditions, who were not seeing each other as being connected. By adopting the term pagan, it united people and began a movement. So I, in a sense, founded a movement by naming it.
Ravenheart is also a real-life incarnation of Dumbledore, J.K. Rowling's storybook wizard in the Harry Potter series that's now sold nearly 300 million copies worldwide. Dumbledore, of course, is headmaster of the Hogwarts School of Wizardry and Witchcraft, where, in the latest book, The Half-Blood Prince, Harry, Ron and Hermione are in their penultimate year. Ravenheart happens to be headmaster of the real thing, the Grey School of Wizardry in California, that attracts people as young as 11 and as old as 70 from all over the world.
We not only have classes in traditional wizardry lore and magical things, we have our Department of Healing, for example, also has contemporary medicinal practices. We teach Latin in our Department of Magical Practice. We teach geology in our Department of Earth Magics. We teach astronomy and astrophysics in our Department of Cosmology, along with astrology and all the other subjects.
As we'll see, the power of witchcraft is no storybook fantasy. But whatever its serious side, paganism should, according to its most famous wizard, be fun. How many of us, for instance, have sometimes felt like turning someone into a toad? Well, here's a man who can.
I did turn a kid into a toad one time. I was at a Renaissance fair, and this kid showed up and said, "You're a wizard?" I said, "Yeah." I said, "Can you turn me into a toad?" And he had his friends around with him. So I turned to his friends and, well, I asked, I said, "Do you really want this?" And he said, "Oh, yes." And I asked his friends, do you think that I should do this? And they all agreed. And I said, "Well, okay, hocus pocus, higgledy jiggly, you're a toad." And I turned to his friends and said, "Now, isn't he a toad?" And they all agreed he was a toad. And from then on, they called him Toad. The following weekend, the kid showed up and begged me to remove the spell. He was tired of being a toad.
Because it's all in the mind, right?
All of our religions are based on beliefs, and they're not based on hard facts and stuff. They're based on what people believe.
I do.
There we are. And is that typical? Is that you?
Stereotypical.
Oh, okay.
No, as a general thing.
Back in Australia, we'll be meeting other people today, pleased to be centre stage in our pioneering story about local paganism, yet equally happy to play the part.
Now, you're a witch, aren't you?
I am a witch.
What kind of witch are you? A
I'm
good
a
witch?
good witch.
You practice witchcraft?
Yes,
You cast spells?
yes,
You do all of those things?
do all of those things. Yep.
Are you a good witch or a bad witch?
I'm very much a good witch. At least I think so.
You're a sorceress.
Yes.
What is a sorceress?
Okay, someone who wields the source or works and uses the source. The source being energy, god, goddess. I would call it Elvis, it matters not to me.
You're a goblin, aren't you?
Well, they call me Goblin.
Why do they call you a goblin?
Well, I belong
Because
to...
you look like a goblin, or
no,
you
it's
behave like a goblin,
it's just
or what?
because I ain't no elf.
They call you an elf.
Yeah, they call me an elf, yeah.
Unlike the others, though, this elf isn't all that enamoured of his tag.
I mean, you do look like an elf, don't you?
I don't know, it depends on who you ask.
Well,
but...
you've got elfin features.
Oh,
haven't you?
okay, rightio.
You got pointy ears. Let's not put too fine a point on it. You know, you're pretty modest in stature, physically.
Just a term that they came up with. I think there's a bit of joviality in it.
You are a small spiritual being, though, aren't you?
Yes, I am small, I am spiritual. So
and you're a being.
I am a being.
Well,
so...
maybe you should wear the tag with pride.
But however reluctant elves may be to declare themselves, there's one category you won't be meeting today, and that's a real-life fairy, in the traditional sense of the word, that is. Much as it'll come as a shock to all little girls watching, fairies aren't popular with pagans. Astral cockroaches, one witch described them as, usually nasty and never to be trusted. What might also come as a shock to many grown-ups is that witches are active in the nation's boardrooms, a string of covens operating in the business world. We'd like to have persuaded them to emerge from their broom closets, but perhaps understandably, the best we could do was talk to someone who knows who they are, but isn't telling.
Now, you're a corporate woman, aren't you?
Yes.
You've got a mainstream corporate job.
Yes.
What kind of job is that?
It's a job in a top 500 Australian company, very large manufacturing base. I'm in middle management.
And yet you're also a witch,
That's right.
aren't you?
Yeah, that's right.
Stacey DeMarco isn't keen to say which company she works for. But having written a book called There's a Witch in the Boardroom, she says corporate covens are a lot more prevalent than many bosses realise.
They exist in Sydney, Melbourne, in the States, in the UK as well. There are probably many more that I don't even know about.
Are they swapping spells?
Yes, some of them that are pagan do. But I would say one of the biggest ones in Sydney, I'd say half of them would be into that, and the other half are just wanting the assistance of another group of really fantastic professional people. Go on then, big fella.
For your average corporate witch, equal opportunity laws obviously offer some degree of protection. And for Stacey, coming out at work just before her book was published was painless.
When I spoke to my boss about it and the people that were around me that work with me, well, the first thing they did was congratulate me on such a great effort. And the second thing was, well, you're no different than you were yesterday, as long as you're not, going to turn into, wearing the weird clothes and having a broomstick in the office every day. I can't see anything different. I talked about her earlier.
But in Stacey's private life, declaring herself a witch wasn't quite so easy. She'd grown up a Roman Catholic, and for some of her friends and acquaintances, embracing paganism was either an affront or just too weird to cope with.
Because some people have their own spiritual beliefs or very strong religious beliefs, they tend to distance themselves. I mean, I didn't have anyone overtly, you know, aggressive, but certainly people that have drifted away since.
You've lost friends?
Yes, I've been, I couldn't even go down to my local cafe at one stage when the book first came out.
When they found out you were a witch?
Yeah.
There's a saying in television that if you want a friend, get a dog. Well, for witches, there's always, well, watch this.
But can you will things to happen?
We all can.
You can?
We all can. I think...
Can you call your cat?
I can call him Wookie.
Without calling him?
Yes, yes, definitely. I think anyone, though, who has a great relationship with their cat or any of their pets can do that. I don't think that's a special gift unless you're very connected. And I think that's probably the greatest gift about being a witch, is that we are probably more overtly, not just covertly, but overtly connected to everything than most other people.
I mean, you didn't call the cat then?
No.
By your gesture, the cat could tell that it was welcome and it came. Yeah?
Yes, yes. And tonight is full moon.
Remember that the word witch just means wise, and so witchcraft was craft of the wise. And when we look back at our pagan ancestors, the witches were the early doctors. They lived on the fringes, on the outskirts of the villages. They had their own herb garden. They practiced mysterious things that other people didn't understand. I want you to choose a time that's not too upsetting for you to visit.
A modern witch like Nada is more likely to run a business. She started a shop called The Witch's Secret, but some things never change.
I do have a broom. All witches have a broom.
I mean, in the fairy tales they're used for travel, but that's not so, is it?
No, not necessarily, no. A broom is symbolic for more than one reason. First of all, you would sweep an area clean. So if you were going to perform a spell, let's say, you would symbolically sweep that area. And in doing that, not only are you physically cleaning that area, but at a metaphysical level, it's symbolic of clearing that space because there's something good going to take place there.
Many Christians do the same, but with incense in this case, rather than a broom. It's just one of a host of pagan practices adopted by Christianity, even as it tried to stamp out the old religion. That struggle between the forces of the one true God, as Christians would have it, and those of the pagan gods and goddesses continues to this day.
If you're going to compete with somebody in the marketplace, one of the ways you can do it is to badmouth your opposition.
And is that what the Christian churches have done?
I think there's good historical evidence for that.
James McGarry calls himself a metaphysician, a healer so refined at his craft, he teaches other would-be wizards and witches the secrets of pagan medicine.
I mean, it's not that long ago that a witch was burnt at the stake, is it?
1956 in Italy. Previously, 1929 in Ireland.
Does that make witches and other pagans still suspicious about going public with some of this stuff?
Oh, I think so. Being different in our society for any reason can bring negative consequences. We just pump some energy down through the body so I can watch the way it flares up so we can pick up...
And certainly much of what you'll see today is very different indeed, especially for people like me, whose experience beyond conventional medicine ends at the health food shop. James McGarry is going to treat me to rectify what he says are imbalances in my life. But to fully appreciate what we're going to see from McGarry and others, we need to comprehend what for many is the incomprehensible.
What is it that you're doing to me?
I'm working on the bioenergetic field.
The bioenergetic field? Mm-hmm. And what is that?
It's known by various different names in different cultures. Prana, chi, life force, odic force. Every culture's got a name for it.
Ah, the force, yes, the energy, the field, all of this stuff. Well, pretty much like it was described in the first Star Wars movie, there is a field that is generated by all living things. Just like the Earth generates a magnetic field, every body, every organism, every cell generates a field of living energy. The disciplines and training of magic teach you how to use yourself, your body, your internal systems to develop, to project, to manipulate that energy field that we all have.
Sound far-fetched? Well, viewers, drop what you're doing now and prepare for a novel television experience, right there at home, to feel the force.
If you hold your hands up and bring them slowly towards each other, you'll feel that there's a pressure, or, well, I'm not going to tell you what it is. You just do it and tell me what it feels like to you. Bear in mind that it's easier to feel the difference between nothing and something than it is between something and more of the same.
Right.
So start
out there.
Wider, yeah. Slowly bring your hands in until you can feel something between them.
I can.
Mm-hmm.
And this is something everybody watching can do, isn't it?
It sure is, yeah. What you're feeling there is the energy from each of your hands starting to interact with each other.
So this is a very simple experiment in what we're talking about.
Exactly.
Energy.
Mm-hmm.
How do you then use it to heal as you do?
I don't think I heal anybody. What I do is take away the barriers that then allow the person to heal themselves.
Each healer has their own technique. Soroya Rose uses sound as well as touch on our sound recordist, Brian O'Neill.
As I place my hands on, I'm bringing in energy. That's the first thing that takes place.
Bringing in energy from where?
Well, universal energy through my energy, if you like. I act as a conduit. It's not me that's doing that. That's me having the ability or knowledge, if you like, to tap into an energy source.
Okay, well, what about the extraordinarily haunting, all-encompassing sound that you then made?
That's pretty awesome. People often ask, where does it come from? Well, it's spirit. I can't define that. Spirit's spirit.
You don't feel as if you're making it?
I know that my vocal cords are being used, okay, and that it comes through me, but it's not what I would consider an earthly sound. I'm harvesting another vibration, you know.
Of a natural spirit.
Of a natural spirit that actually exists everywhere, and I'm never without it. We're never without our hands and our heart. I work with the source, which is hence the name the sorceress. I'm what we call in the business guided, which means I get intuitive feelings about where I need to go and why. And it's very subtle knowings, but you learn to trust it and you follow it, and it's perfect.
Well, you know, it's one of those kind of things that until you've experienced it, you really can't imagine it. It's what we call a mystery. Many people may never experience it. And I'm sorry that that's just the way it goes. But for those of us who practice and live in magic, it's so pervasive we can't imagine being outside of it. It's like air or sunshine or life itself.
Some healers and witches have developed extraordinary powers that again have to be experienced to be believed. Now, I'm a pretty sceptical kind of guy, but the last time I met this bloke for a pre-interview, I came away wishing I hadn't. Darren Russell decided I needed a hands-on liver detox.
You touched me on my, just above my stomach here on the side. What happened to me? Because when I left here, I not only ran my car, or the car I was driving, into a wall, but I felt really quite odd and had to give the car over to my producer. What had happened to me?
You ran the car because you were overwhelmed by the experience. The other things were a release in your physical body, bringing back into balance over a number of days some health issues that you had. I looked at someone who needed to be touched in a certain spot to bring them back to a certain level of health, and then they would be able to take hold of their health problems on their own.
Okay. I have felt better since this happened. Is it a coincidence? Or is that what you intended?
I intended that.
You intended me to heal and to feel better? Okay, but what did you do to me that day?
Through breath and concentration and knowledge of the body's workings, I manipulated the energy within your body to release what was causing you a problem and to bring you back into harmony.
Darren Russell is recognised in pagan circles, not just for his extraordinary ability to wield the force, but for his teaching skills. His instruction includes witchcraft, druidic tradition, and other aspects of what he calls the old law.
L-O-R-E, not L-A-W.
W, yeah.
The law being an energetic knowledge that's carried in the blood, and also an oral knowledge that is transmitted mouth to ear, and something that is a collective experience of the European people.
This is a real treasure trove of pagan items. I mean,
in every way, Darren's regarded as a traditionalist, some say a fundamentalist, a lineage witch whose skills have been passed down through successive generations, in his case, from an uncle.
We see our system as being an authentic linear tradition, and it's very deep, and we don't want it associated with flippancy.
Which is how Darren regards the practices of some New Age pagans, though he won't criticise them directly.
I just believe that is called another thing. It is not the roots tradition. In the same way that yoga in its roots is attached to Hindu religion, it is an aspect of that. And a Hindu priest may see it as being slightly corrupted in its form when it is practiced in the...
But a simmering conflict in pagan circles suddenly boils over today, with an attack on New Agers by another traditionalist, Shane Hall, the elf we met earlier.
Well, the problem is you get a lot of the eco-activists who think that paganism is all about saving the planet. I mean, that's far from the truth. Sure, nature is revered and it's an important part of our lives, but some of these people just go too far overboard. I mean, I know some people who, they'll go to prune a tree and they'll ask permission of the tree before they do it. They'll go to mow the lawn and they'll say a blessing for the grass. And to me, it's, give me a break.
Far more provocative is Hall's contention that the pagan movement has been hijacked by feminists.
With true paganism, there's an equality of reverence between the feminine and the masculine forces, the goddess and the god. The feminist pagans have decided that we're going to be number one, we're going to be dominant. They've totally rejected the masculine aspect of paganism. They've only worshipped the goddess, and they've mimicked Christianity to the point where it's as if they've basically gotten Jesus and put a dress on him.
Few doubt that more women than men are among recent recruits to paganism because of its emphasis on gender equality. But hijacking the movement? Well, we couldn't find a witch prepared to answer the criticism publicly. But behind the scenes today, you can be sure the cauldrons are boiling. We're told witch wars can be very nasty, so perhaps with that in mind, the founder of modern paganism is calling for tolerance and calm.
Well, I think all fundamentalists should probably back off and get a life, whatever religion they're for. I think that we need to put the fun back in fundamentalism, and these guys have lost sight of that. I don't have a problem with people who just want to show up because we put on the really best parties in town, That's okay, too. There's a lot of people who go to Christian churches and they only show up on Easter and Christmas, and, that's all right if that's what they want to do. Everybody isn't necessarily called to be clergy.
The closest to pagan clergy in Australia is Anthor Nomchong, local founder of Oberon Ravenheart's Church of All Worlds, who works as a customs officer when he's not on matters pagan. The church is officially recognised and gets the same tax breaks as other churches. But unlike other churches, it constantly has to defend itself against charges that its members are satanic.
Witches are not Satanists because Satanism is part of the Christian religion. See, the Christian mythos has God and the devil, or Lucifer, those sorts of things. So it has the positive and negative. That's their religion. Witchcraft, paganism, they are another religion. They don't have anything to do with that.
So you don't worship Satan, the devil, or
I'm not a Christian.
The concept of Satan and the devil, as the fundamentalist churches promoted, is a medieval concept that is, to us, just totally bizarre, but it's their mythology and not ours. We just think it's kind of nuts.
Yet even works of fiction with pagan themes tend to raise the ire of conservative Christians, as author Lynn Santa found with a book she wrote called Professor Midnight. An Anglican clergyman even admonished his parishioners from the pulpit not to buy the work.
It boiled down to, in synopsis, that the book was evil filth that should effectively be put in the garbage with the rest of the trash. Well, that's
Evil filth?
Evil filth.
A novel?
Yes.
Fiction?
Yes.
Were you surprised?
I was gobsmacked.
And did he say why?
Because it was evil and it delved into the occult and it invoked the demonic and it didn't treat magic responsibly like Harry Potter did.
Needless to say, most pagans just love Harry Potter, like goblin Paul Parkinson, who says muggles and pagans are equally capable of evil and of taking themselves far too seriously.
Muggles.
What's a muggle?
It's something that's come over from Harry Potter. It's anybody who's not magic, basically, as a muggle.
So that's a Harry Potterism that's been adopted?
That's a Harry Potterism that's sort of come through.
And is being used in the pagan community as a description for outsiders?
Yeah. I've heard it used quite often now.
Okay.
So a muggle's someone who's in the outside world. They just muggle through life and, you know, go through the motions, as it were, and...
As opposed to wizards, elves, goblins, fairies and the rest of you.
As opposed to us, yeah. Yes. It's a magic world, you know. You got to find fun in everything, you know.
Do we practice anything evil? My feeling for that is no. But the dark side exists, but it exists in every walk of life. And we can't separate ourselves from that.
That includes witches?
That includes witches. Of course, they're people.
So there are bad witches around?
No, there are bad people around. There are definitely bad people around.
But rest assured, say the good witches, every bad witch knows what's in store if they ever attempt to cast an evil spell.
One of the things that all witches believe on is what they call the threefold law. And that basic law is, and it's a law of nature, it's a law of the world, it's how things work, which is that no matter what you do, that effect will come back to you threefold.
So that's a fundamental tenet of witchcraft?
Of witchcraft, as a religion and also as a practice, as a mystical practice.
So what you're saying is that the bad witch is taking a terrible risk.
Extremely so.
By employing evil.
Extremely so.
It's J.K. Rowling!
Right now, all over the world, millions of people, young and old, are enjoying a work of fiction with themes that many of those we've met today play out in real life. They've gone public in a way they've never done before, with some trepidation, for the pagan experience has invariably been one of persecution. But in doing so, there's one thing they say they can confirm: the truth of that old saying about fact being stranger than fiction.
The beauty of the Harry Potter stories is that the magical world isn't far away like in Star Wars in another galaxy, or once upon a time in some prehistoric world that never quite existed like Middle Earth, or in some place like Narnia or Oz that you can only get to by some strange magic portal. It's right next door. It says that just outside of the mundane world, what they call the Muggle world, we call mundane, that everybody sees ordinarily, there's other people in another world that are still share the same physical universe, but are doing other things and having other lives. Well, that's true.
It's a magic world out there. Graham Davis with that report, the producer, Kirstine Lum.